Okay, also same concept as before. Now I have one of these cylindrical food dehydrators. The one I'm using is an open country food dehydrator, and this goes on top. I'll kind of talk a little bit more about food dehydration here in a second, but let me show you how I measure out my 13.5 ounces here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my food dehydrating tray, and I have a little insert that lets me do stuff that has liquids in it, and since I have spaghetti sauce, that'll be appropriate. Down here I'll go ahead and turn on the scale, and it will be zeroed out, and I'm going to go ahead and select ounces. I don't even know if you guys can see this, but that's what I'm doing, is I'm selecting ounces. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and scoop this onto here, and until I get 13.5 ounces. And what we want to do, I got one hand on the camera here, is we want to try to smooth this out as thin and as evenly as possible. And that's going to ensure proper food dehydration and proper food safety. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Okay, y'all, so this is my 13.5 ounces, and this is what 500 calories of my spaghetti and meat sauce recipe looks like. So I'll be putting this all together in the food dehydrator here in a second. Let me go ahead and finish up these other trays first. One thing before I get to that is, if you look here, you can see that I pushed it down really thin with a spoon, and so that is something that I'm trying to do to make sure that the air moves over here evenly and gets this food dehydrated in a reasonable amount of time. Alright guys, so I have my spaghetti all measured up and on the trays here. Let me talk a little bit about food dehydrators. I'll go ahead and open that up. You can see my trays of spaghetti here, all measured out in 500 calorie portions. Food dehydration is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, form of food preservation. And it used to be done out in the sun, in the dry weather, but we now have the opportunity to do this with electricity. So what we have here is a heating unit with a fan. This is, I don't know what you would call this, a cylindrical or a top-down food dehydrator. The air starts here and it blows down through the trays, and it circulates in between, giving it nice even temperature and airflow here. This one does have a dial you can set between 155 and 95, and it even says on here too, it'll give you recommendations for a temperature guide. Anything that has meat in it we're going to do for 155, and the overall food dehydration time for most things is going to be between 8 and 12 hours. What I always do is, because I work, and I'm sure you do too, is I just set this thing overnight and then I unplug it in the morning if everything's dry. That way we can be sure that our food is dehydrated. So that's all I have to say about that, and we'll check on that. A couple quick things about food dehydration is it doesn't have to be expensive. You can get models I've seen for around $50, $60. I think this one was $80. You don't have to necessarily use this for backpacking food. You can use this to help if you like to garden or save other things, even leftovers. And as far as why we would want to do this for food dehydration for backpacking is because it makes the food lighter. I can get water while I'm on the trail, add it to this, and I'll show you guys the difference in the weight with the before and after once this is done, and we'll check on this in the morning.